All right. Rank on Alexa and Siri with your podcast episodes or shows. Why I'm doing that is because I'm clapping for you because you took action today to actually impact your audience using voice. And you're listening to me through my voice, and you're listening to this information, to this podcast, because you want to learn how to rank on Alexa and Siri with your podcast. I'm sure you're wondering how Sway, how Favor, how can this actually work? Is this really happening? Is this a real thing? Can it actually do happen? Yes, it can happen. And you want to look at this long term because you want to keep building and also keep understanding what that is going to do for you, what it's going to do for your business, what it's going to do for your brand, especially the branding piece. This is something that is so, so, so important. And I don't want this to be, underlooked or underestimated or even undervalued because there's so much value that you can get from being here, learning, building, growing, and also potentially understanding how you can do this for yourself, for your business. Because there's one thing. It's one thing to build a website, to have all the connections. It's another thing to also have it connected to the search console. It's another thing to have it connected to your Microsoft Clarity, which is your way of showing up on a heat map, right? You can do that with different platforms, and you can learn those things because you can set them up. But it's one thing to set up, but it's also another thing to actually see the results from the setup. Because as you're setting up these tools, you're setting up these things, you're also learning how to show up on different platforms, right? Because I've seen I've seen my podcast rank on Alexa. I've seen it rank on Siri. I've seen it rank on search engines like Google. I've seen it rank on AI overview companions. I've seen it rank even when it was SGE, Search Generative Experiment or Experience. That's what it was before it turned into AI overview. This is for Google. These are things that have been happening. And for you to even rank on Alexa, you need to rank on Google first. So that's why I really want us to say, okay, yeah, you want to rank on Alexa, you want to rank on Siri, you want to have your podcast show up, but how many episodes do you have that talks about the same thing in different dimensions, in different ways, with different semantics, but still have contextual value and still maintain content relevance to the search phrase or the search filter that your business is in search of or has the ability to search through. So there's so many ways you can rank on Alexa and Siri just with your podcast episode. Just with your podcast episode, either as a guest or as a host, you could have. So it's really up to you that can really, show how this thing can work for you long term. So you want to be able to do this with your business and you want to learn how this can work well for you. And we're going to talk about that today. I did a first room on college is the worst place to learn SEO. And I talked about it a little bit because I want to just debunk that because that was a quote I saw from someone on SEO when I was doing some research. And I said, okay, let me talk about voice search optimization because I think that's something that a lot of us want to know but also we're also curious about. And this will be the topic that a lot of people will talk about next year. So it's not really talked about right now because not many people know what to say. But doing it here on Clubhouse first is going to be great because you heard it first here and it's not hard to rank on Alexa. It's not hard to rank on Siri. I thought it used to be hard. Honestly, when this was back in 2019, I was like, how am I going to get on this voice search? This is when it wasn't even a thing. Yeah, Siri was there, but it wasn't really a thing. Now there's artificial intelligence. Now there's Apple intelligence. So how do you create content that's going to end up on these search engines in the new year? So we're really going to talk about some futuristic stuff tonight, to this afternoon, this evening, this day, this morning, because it's a global app. For me, it's morning. It's really early. It's 8:20 a.m. Central. So I'm really happy that I'm here with you guys today, and hopefully we can get some questions asked in the chat. If you have a question in the chat, please put it in the chat. And if you want to click the link above, that will take you to all the links available. If you want to book a call, if you want to learn more, listen to the podcast, anything you need to do, it's all available up there. So feel free to join us today. Hey, Lisa, good morning.
Hi, Favor. Good morning, everyone. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for joining today. Let people know who you are so that they can also connect with you too if they have any questions.
Yes, hi. My name is Lisa. I run Foolproof Baking Company. It's a company that teaches baking classes and cooking classes. I offer monthly cooking clubs and monthly baking clubs. So if you want to flex your cooking and baking skills, if you want to learn new recipes, if you're a beginner and you've just felt overwhelmed and didn't know where to get started, um, the Foolproof Baking Club is that safe space for you. There are other people that are a part of the club. We all link up and join virtually, and we pick a recipe once a month and tackle it. And at the end, you wound up with a tasty dessert or, something that you've prepared for dinner. Every month it's something new. And besides that, I also want to introduce myself as Lisa, the registered dietitian that's a diabetes educator. So I also work with people with type 2 diabetes to get their blood sugars under control. So I wear both of those hats. And up until recently, I tried to keep those worlds separate, but I realized that, I'm always saying in my classes that people with type 2 diabetes can enjoy dessert, can enjoy foods that they always thought was off limits. So I teach that in my classes also. There's some strategies behind it, and those are the kinds of things that my clients learn. So my intro is a little long, but I like to, go into a little further detail as to, how I'm doing both and how I've merged the two.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yes, 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 yes. And I actually was thinking about something as you said, and I was thinking we could actually talk about it when we look at the Alexa Siri, discussion for today. And, even for your business for Foolproof Baking, guys, click the link in the chat. It's foolproofbaking.co.co. And you can check out all the great stuff Lisa has as well for you. As you were speaking, Lisa, I was thinking about Tam, Sam, and Psalm, the total available market, the service available market, and the service obtainable market. So for you, like how you said, you were trying to keep both worlds separate, but you're kind of bringing them together now is a great way because now you're adding more semantics, you're adding more color, you're adding more brand, and you're adding more sustainability as a dominant authority, in your niche. So when I look at the total available market, you can reach out to anybody who loves cooking. People love to cook. I love to cook. When I'm cooking, I love to make a good meal. I like to, try different experiments, different recipes and this and that, check different things out, taste something new. And then that's what people love, right? They may not necessarily pay for your course or jump into your class, but they just want to cook from a distance. They just want to have a good time and enjoy Thanksgiving. They just want to feel good. Now, there's now the total available market that you're speaking to that also needs a service. So that service, right? Time to cook. Exactly. Let her cook. Exactly. You know, Welcome, John. It's like you create the experience for someone to learn from you because they want to learn how to cook. Now, the service available market now is okay. These people would love to cook, but they want to also get into some classes, right? Now, these classes are available to them. They have this option, they have that option, they have this option, they have that option. So it's available as a service because the total available market is ready to inquire for services. So if you think about the identifier model, if you think about the keyword model, if you think about the solution model, then you're giving people results. If someone's looking for SEO services, then I know that they're inquiring about a service that they want to pay for. If they're going to look for SEO course, then they're also thinking about the same thing. But if they change and they say, what is SEO? They're not trying to pay for an SEO class or service. They just want to understand the concept. So when they type, they're typing with a reflection of what they want. So for you now with the service obtainable market, it's like a Venn diagram. And the people now that are within that specific category that you serve that need that solution when it comes to the coaching, the classes, the alternatives, from, reasons to give them, better health procedures, then that's where now that service obtainable market comes in because it's now deeper than just people who want to get into class to cook. So it changes the whole layer. And then for you, because you have Pinterest too, that also allows you to show up because Pinterest has what they call rich snippets. And these rich snippets are like products, articles, recipes, especially like if you have recipes and those recipes are building, it takes you to the next level. So just think about how you can really turn those recipes on your website and people come to you just because they want to learn information on cooking. But in the process of cooking or learning how to cook, they find your class and then they find your website and then join your community. So and then now they ask Siri. So if I ask you, Lisa, if you've ever tried asking Alexa or Siri something about related to, cooking, have you ever gotten a result that was satisfactory or did you have to go to Google to now search for more information?
Oops. Actually, I've never used it for a search. I have to admit, I always, if I'm looking for something that I do not already know, I always go to Google. I've never used, you said Siri, or is that what you were talking about, or Alexis?
Yeah.
I don't have that in my house. Isn't that like one of those little globes that you have in your house that you speak to turn your lights on, turn your lights off, and you ask it questions? Yeah, I don't have that. Maybe I need to get that.
Yeah, it's a new thing. I mean, it's still going, but I believe this is really where it's going to take a huge change when it comes to people searching because they did a search. I did a study research the other day. It was a while back, not too long ago. I think it was this year, and I got to see that when people that use voice search platforms like Alexa or Siri, 60% of the time they're home alone or not with someone around that they can ask the question. So they can just, hey, Alexa, turn down the volume. Hey, do this, do that. Like it's because they're able to control that with their voice. And then when they start asking questions, it starts matching to their interests and then starts matching into their day. Even on Google with Siri too. If you say, hey Google, hey Siri, it will you can be able to get those responses. But Siri will give you like Safari because it's based on Apple. And then if you're also on Apple, there's Apple Podcast. So that's Siri infused. So like when you really look at if you really like put the dots together and align everything, it just makes sense. Like it's a full picture. So that would be really great to check out, Lisa.
Definitely will. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Hey John, welcome to the room. Good morning. What are your thoughts on the room topic?
Well, good morning. And I did do, I got to check the Siri. I can't really do it because I'm on the phone. But yes, you can access my podcast by just saying, Alexa, play Law Enforcement Talk podcast. Last time I checked, it worked in Siri as well. And here's the reason why it's important. I'm just looking at the metrics. Um, for one of our radio stations that I do some work with, and it's streaming with the apps and also with their online streams. Which, when people can't hear their terrestrial signal, they use that. So I'm looking at one station. This is in Clewiston, Florida, which is a small town. Smart speakers, Alexa, think of that. 65 people used that platform in the last month to access that stream. That's 65 people that could not hear your content. So my personal consumption might be different than other people. And we have a smart TV now, so our Alexa's hooked into that, and I can play my podcast directly through the TV. So it may not be an overwhelming audience, but it's audience nonetheless. So if you're not doing that, you got to ask yourself. And by the way, it's a really simple fix. Do a lot of these things. It's a way of getting exposure to more people.
Oh yeah, it changes everything. And I also believe too that what's contributing to that success too is Pinterest, Facebook, podcast definitely with the reach because it's looking for relatable searches that point back to the domain authority. So if that person has authority and is able to spread and have backlinks and have referring domains and have external links, internal links, then it also plays bigger. And then the more you're able to cover more market areas, then it changes because now if somebody is going to ask Alexa a question, then if somebody's going to get let's say a turkey gravy recipe, for example, whatever Alexa's gonna say back is gonna be very important because whoever's gonna be that person, the reason why they're there is possibly because they have a YouTube video, they have a website, they have comments, they have social media, they have something to point back, and it's not just gonna be a random one. Or they may say, here's a playlist, if you're very specific with your prompt, and then say, hey, give me a playlist of cooking, and then you now create a playlist on the back end. That's a win for you. So there are really good ways to know how to do it, but it takes strategy as well. So Lisa, what are your thoughts on that with the recipes and Pinterest too?
I was gonna say, as soon as you said gravy, I thought I'm in his head. Because I don't think that you would have used the example of gravy a week ago. Um, I published an article on homemade roasted turkey gravy, and it looked like it was going to go viral. It got a lot of hits, it got a lot of likes, and it got a lot of shares. So that's why probably turkey gravy is on his mind. I just want to say, just everything that you shared so far, and even what John shared, is why people need to be a part of your club. Because I'm sitting here like, okay, I've heard of Siri, I heard of Alexis, I have an iPhone, I'm talking to it now, but here's a tool that I haven't even been utilizing until today. So I'm definitely going to, check out everything that you both just shared. So I just want to thank you. And John, listening to your podcast through your TV, we have a smart TV too, but I don't utilize all of the tools that I can. So it just, brings me up to speed. I want to thank you guys for it. And if you're not already following this club, make sure you follow this club. Just wanted to say that because look at how much I just learned.
By the way, Lisa, I don't watch, I don't consume podcasts on my TV either. So don't feel like you're alone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said, did you listen to your
Oh, you can.
podcast?
So with a smart
Right.
TV, my Alexa's hooked up to it, so I can just say, "Hey, listen to the podcast." It plays right to the TV. So a lot of people don't realize now is, and it's not just your TV; it's your car. A lot of the newer cars have Apple CarPlay and other digital dashboards where you can consume podcasts directly from there and listen to the car. So it really getting this, if you create the content already, I'll head back to favorite moment. If you create the content already, it's a few more steps to make sure it's accessible on these other platforms. And once it's done, you don't have to revisit it. So it's a why not situation. Even if it's only 100 people, that's 100 more than you had before.
Mm-hmm. That 100 could push the signals from signal F to signal D, if I can really think about it like that. And then that becomes an A signal, and then that becomes a top signal for search. Because whenever you start, something new, everything starts from one. You turn 1 year old, you have, you put into the ground a seed that you plant and you wait for it to grow, you invest and you wait for it to mature. It's the same thing with blogs and podcasts. I'm so grateful. I actually think about it every day. I'm like, thank God I did not quit on podcasting because I almost did. because I'm like, who's like, this is not working for me. Like halfway through, I was like, "Nah, let me just go back to music." I love it there. But I said, no, there's a reason why I started this. And the only reason for me to continue is because I need to know why I started. And, going in now, looking at smart speakers, looking at the way AI technology is coming in, all those words, all those topics, all those things you said as a guest or as a host is now transcribed into Apple, which now becomes a Siri suggested website. If you have a domain connected, and that becomes your authority landmark, like it's wide. You may never even need to spend money on ads again. You may just want to do paid campaigns just to test the market, not because you want to make conversions. It's just because you want to start looking into new territories. So the shift gear changes, and you start really learning too about how you can show up online, even differently too. So I think it's definitely changed the way people connect. And I also believe too that, right now, not everyone is using it, like you said, Lisa, and John too, even with the smart TVs. Not everyone is still talking into their, to their remote controls. Not everyone yet is talking into their home speakers, even to their phones. Not everyone's doing that yet. But when it starts happening and they start talking to their cars and they say, hey, do this, do that, it changes everything. So you start to really start creating a whole new world of connections. And that way you start realizing that people listen to your podcast for different things. And it makes sense now, because when I think about a year ago, Alexa had a Chrome extension tool that they had to like just take out of the market. They had to sunset it because for some reason, I don't know why, but it was a big thing. But it's still there. It was a Chrome extension, but if you can really see like your Alexa ranking, like that's something I'll probably talk about in depth very soon when it comes to Alexa ranking. That'll be very exclusive because that has a lot of detail. Because when Alexa has your information, it also says a lot about your authority, and it also depends on how much you give. Because if you're on a platform outside your website that really has that domain authority, you can really build it out too. So it changes. Ranking on Alexa is great for marketing, not even just to be on Alexa or to show up on Alexa. Because, yeah, you can be on Alexa today and somebody just searches for you and won't purchase. That's another thing. So somebody might just, search on Alexa or Siri and not do anything after that. So it's not about just showing up there or being on site. It's looking at what is your brand looking like and what's that portfolio looking like to give you that edge or that competitive advantage or that comparative advantage over your competitor when you now show up on those platforms. Because when you start showing up there, people start to trust you more because you actually show up on platforms that they actually use. If I keep using this same thing, eventually I'm going to get used to it because I know the functionality of what it's being used for, right? If I'm cooking, if I'm cleaning, if I'm recording, if I'm taking pictures, if I'm doing a sport, like, because there's that reticular activated system that is keeping you in that retention mode of really sharpening your skills. So it really takes everything out and really gives you that edge. But when you're on a platform like Pinterest too, and you have rich pins, and those rich pins have recipes, like for you, Lisa, it helps. Someone may say, okay, I don't have recipes. I don't, how will I rank there? Your articles. So there's really no excuse to not be on the web, because majority of the web pages you see online are news pages. Those are article pages. Those are blog pages, because those pages, why they rank the most is because they're featherweight, if I can put it like that. They don't have too much. It's just information. It's a web page. It's structured. Now, when you start going into product pages, you start going into service pages, you start going into, you know, pages with PDFs, it starts to change a little bit different because of the sub segmenting. But when you look at the top funnel, it just changes the whole dynamic shift, and that gives you, potential audience authority, and then you can be able to build that authority over time. So that definitely makes a lot of sense too. Lisa, I wanted to ask you about, even with your Newsbreak experience, because Lisa, John, Lisa has a really good excitement to share. and she just took it to the roof. I was like, yeah, she's definitely does so in a year. I'm like, wow, this is just the beginning. And like now you said to Lisa, once you have Alexa, Siri, I'm sure even when you start searching, you'll be surprised to get, Alexa will respond back to you because you're an authority in that niche. So we'd love to hear from you on like that experience with Newsbreak, because I would love John to hear it too if it's possible.
Yes, last night I hit finally 100 registered followers. I It's something that I had been Yes, I am so excited about that. Thank you, John. It's something that I had started to work on last year, and I had a family situation that I had to turn my attention to. And when I came back from that, um, just in the last, I would say, 2 months or so, I was strategizing with Favor. I'm a part of his SEO mastermind with, you know, uh, uh, a group of wonderful people. And I was just trying to figure out, like, how do I get back in? If you know anything about double dutch or playing rope, and you're sitting on the sidelines and you're waiting to jump in, and you just don't. And at some point, I was just like, I really got to look at what I was doing before, what was working and what wasn't working. And I love publishing on Newsbreak. I love sharing what I know with people. I always say that that is my purpose, sharing what I know, sharing what's helped me, sharing what's helped my clients. And I decided that's where I was going to focus my attention. And my goal was to hit 100 registered followers, sorry, by the first of 2025. And that gravy article that I was just talking about a few minutes ago just took off. People really love that gravy article, and that gravy article pretty much, like, where my numbers were only in the 30s, from where I started last year, it like tripled my numbers. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, it's just gravy, but apparently gravy, is important. And it really is. You got to have good gravy for your turkey, good gravy for your mashed potatoes, for your stuffing and things like that. So let me just say, if you want a banging turkey gravy recipe, you definitely, and I'll share the link for it in the chat. Like, I have all of my Thanksgiving recipes. Not all of them. I'm still posting them there. But if you need some foolproof Thanksgiving recipes, holiday recipes, anytime recipes, you definitely want to follow me on Newsbreak, and I'll share that link in the chat.
I just put in the chat for you,
Oh, thank
Lisa.
you. Thank you. I'm getting a
You're
red bar, so
welcome.
I hope that everyone can hear me okay. But yeah, the biggest thing is that I hit a level where I can now monetize. And so what I didn't do in 3 months or 4 months on Newsbreak, I wound up doing in 2 weeks. So I saw that it is very much possible. So I'm just waiting to be approved at this point. And I'm really hoping that they approve me this first go round. So there's that. So thank you. Oh, and my podcast.
Wow.
Favor and I have a
Hmm.
podcast out too. I just realized that. So that follows along with the holiday tips. If you need help getting through the next couple days to get to the holidays, whether you're cooking or you're entertaining, we have a podcast that's up also where Favor interviews me, and I give my best tips. Like, these aren't ones that you just typically see on Google. These are the tips that have really helped me become a host and an entertainer that also has the time to enjoy themselves with their guests, because that's really important. So just wanted to share that as well. Favor, did you put that in the chat also? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. John, what do you think?
Kudos to you, Lisa. That's awesome. I went in a news break, and she pinned a link. Or we'll pin a link in the chat or something like that. So I look at the analytics. I started news break October of last year. So as of right now, we're just shy of 9 million total impressions. 456,000 views on Google, 448,000 in app views, 5,082 likes, 2,412 followers, and it goes on and on. So, yes, I do create revenue from that. And there's a little strategy you can do. It's free to become a creator. And it's a great way at the bottom of every article you do, even if it's not, I do episodes, articles that support episodes of my podcast, but I also do other ones that are sometimes needs adjacent, other times are not. But at the bottom of every article, I put something like, John J. Wiley's the host of the nationally syndicated law enforcement talk radio show, and I bet a link to my website. I also say you can listen to the podcast there for free, blah, 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 Apple, Spotify, other ones, and embed links there as well. The main reason why you embed a link is it develops backlinks that has a high domain authority. So that increases your searchability. This one has been a big game changer for me for my podcast. So don't think of how many people read your article. Think, and by the way, making money from it is great. There are people that I read articles that are making $7,500 a month just off writing off Newsbreak. I'm not there yet. I've done, I think, the most $500 in 1 month. There are some articles that do really well, other ones not. You can do phenomenal with one article. There's two other platforms, and I'll explain to you how you use them. They're both free that do the same thing. One is Medium.com. Medium has about 100 million monthly average users and it has a really high domain authority, even higher than Newsbreak. The other one is Blogspot or Blogger.com. And you can take all your content. You do your original article, then you can copy and paste it and run it through some AI program like ChatGPT to rewrite it as a blog or lifestyle blog article, whatever it might be. And then, but make sure you embed your links in each one so you get the benefits of the backlinks and increased exposure. Think of this way: 456,000 people that read articles, they're now aware of my content that weren't before. And I did all that for free. Lisa, you are on the right track. Kudos to you.
See, I was gonna say thank you so much, John. Favor's the first one that told me about Newsbreak, but I have been in your rooms as well. So if you're not following John, you want to make sure to follow John as well. Wealth of information here on the stage. Wealth of information. I got you on health and cooking and baking. Favor has you on all things SEO, Pinterest. I mean, Favor and I just working with Favor have gotten to know he's goes beyond SEO and Pinterest. I don't think that you really put out all of your talents are out there. And I know they always tell us to niche down, but I will say that Favor in a way is like a one-stop shop. you know and then you got John, Newsbreak, Podcast King, you know again, just a wealth of information up here on the stage. So tap in, follow us. You might not know exactly what you need right now, but jump on a call, uh uh read John's articles, check out his websites. Trust me, it will come to you. You will get inspired. You'll figure things out. They'll help you figure things out. Got to start somewhere.
100%. You got to start somewhere. That first, article may not look like anything, but your 10th article, your 20th article, it changes. And I think what I've realized The fundamental thing that I've learned, like if I've learned anything and I could put it in one sentence, out of everything like I do, whether it's email marketing, AI, Pinterest, SEO, podcast, music, making music, the one fundamental thing I've learned that cuts across the board is incremental value of quality and delivery. So if you have your first article, it shouldn't sound or look like your 10th article. Then you look at your 50th article, it shouldn't look or feel like your 100th article. So by the time you're getting to your 100th article, your 100th podcast, you've learned so much about refining and retuning because you've been doing it incrementally, one after the other. Because if you stop doing it, if you stop working out, you'll stop working out. If you stop eating, you'll stop eating. You know, like those things stop happening because there's no flow. So if you're able to do those things incrementally and tackle those topics in different buckets, eventually you grow. And sometimes you wonder like, how do you get your domain authority to that top? It's by being on these platforms. Because Newsbreak has a great domain authority. So if your website is connected and that website sends traffic to your own website and that website is acquiring leads, it's also connecting with people, you're able to be able to read the data points and also know who's connecting with you, where they're coming from. It changes everything. Analytics is huge. It's huge because you're able to know what's happening, because when you work with analytics you're able to see where you're bringing your most content from, where are you getting those things, and what are your goals, for long term. Because I think about the SEO mastermind, and even in myself learning about different businesses, different people, different questions. Because if you keep answering questions, at some point you keep refining your answers, and then the more you refine your answers, the better it is. Because for me, I keep wondering, okay, what am I really doing to help people? What am I really doing to help people? And I just looked through it and I said, okay, yeah, this is the fundamental thing that I do. When it comes to SEO, it's not just about having SEO and keywords and everything on there, which is great, but I've been able to see that I can help businesses that want to increase their brand's market share online just by making sure that they have accessible, responsive websites that are feeding traffic to them, and they're able to validate that with experience and expertise, so that that authority builds over time with your domain, and then that trust is sent across different search engines. So it's like a really good way to build out. And with podcasting, it's also shown a lot of curve when it comes to learning, when it comes to growing and building. So I think the major thing to look out for right now is understanding where you want to go, what you want to do, what is your major plan as a business. Do you want to go to a different platform? How do you work your platforms? What do you use? Because some people just hire on Fiverr and they do everything. And it's like, okay, you're doing some things, but are they really getting you the results that you're looking for when it comes to analytics? Because we can do one or two articles in a month, and that will supersede 10 posts that you've done on social media for the same month. If you were to do it maybe, 2 to 3 times in a week. Because if you think about the longevity of what you're doing, those 10 posts that you've done on social media will not be relevant 10 months after now. But your article that you published 10 minutes ago is going to be relevant 10 years from now. So you decide, where do you want to be? Because, work hard now and enjoy it later, or not work hard now and find out later. It's a difference. And I think, I don't know how to explain it further, but sometimes as well, people also are afraid of just doing it because they just don't know what's going to happen. Because people like to have that security, that protection. Sometimes it's like, I think about even Elon Musk's story, how he was just about in a month to file bankruptcy, but look at him today and where he is. And you think about all those pressures that you go through. Like, pressures make diamonds. So I think that's where the most beautiful songs have come from, the most beautiful ideas have come from, because God just gives us tests, that turn into testimonials, that we can actually show people, hey, I know you're going through this, but I came out of this and I can learn it. And you can ask any person who does SEO today, they will tell you that they really started off as a passion, and more importantly, they probably taught themselves more about it than they learned from somebody, because that self-taught skill is huge when it comes to SEO, because you have to keep testing and you're going to get different tests, because you're going to face different things, different changes, different algorithms, so it changes everything. So you have to really look at it that way as well. Lisa, what do you think about that when you see like the whole scope of what you have now?
Yeah, when I look at what I have now and where I was last year, it's a major difference. I think the time away for me and my situation was very much needed. I had to get away from the noise. My situation, it like I had to. You don't always have that choice to step away. So when they say self care as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, take time away to just, take that time off just to be able to hit the refresh button. I got to see what that time away did for me. It's not that I wasn't working in my business, but I had to like dial it down. I had to like dial it way down. And I came back with a fresher perspective. And I came back like I'm ready to go. Like what do I need to do? I know the end of the year is coming, the end of the quarter is coming. What do I need to do to catch up? And I will say, I feel like I've done more in the last month or two than I was doing when I was really spending a ton of time in it last year, which kind of like goes to show you, you really need to dial in and have, great strategies. And again, having someone like John and Favor to help you dial in is really key as well, because they've been there, they've done that, they're succeeding, they're monetizing, their businesses are growing, they're taking up space. So, if you don't know and if you need help, these two are definitely the people to follow.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, there's so much we can learn from just being here. I've learned a lot too. Just listening and learning is one aspect that we'll keep doing every day, and it makes a whole lot of sense. I was seeing something that really stuck with me, and Seth Godin is amazing, and he said something. I watched something that he talked about on a podcast, and he was talking about Hyatt and Nike. And he was saying that, with branding and with marketing, it's so different when you think about a brand and a business. Hyatt is a business and Nike is a brand. Because if you have Hyatt shoes, right, you're gonna be like, what are those? Because you're not really used to Hyatt making shoes. But if Nike built a hotel, then you're going to definitely want to be in that hotel because you know the brand experience. So when you think about it like that, the whole measurement of exchange changes when you look at what you're giving as an experience online. When people want to connect with you, when they show up online and they connect with your website, they connect with your podcast, what is the information you're giving them? Are they learning? Are they staying? Because if someone's not learning anything, then it's not benefiting them and they're not going to stay. It's just a matter of time. But the more they're able to learn from you, the more they're able to trust you, the more they can come up and ask questions, the faster they'll be able to grow, and the more impact you can be able to have as well. So this is definitely, a really good, way of putting it out there as well. This is good. Any last thoughts, John, on Alexa and Siri when people want to rank there and they want to show up there, but they also want to show up for people? How best can they do it? And then we'll go to you, Lisa.
So I'll just close on this. There's an old metaphor or analogy that someone gave to me a long time ago. Back in the days of the space shuttle program, it carried a lot of fuel. The space shuttle spent expended about 75% of all of its fuel just to escape Earth's gravity. The rest of it was for cruising around and re-landing. So, in the very beginning of the start of your business, or further down the business, relaunch it. It's not doing what you want to do. You're going to expend a lot of energy. And here's the other analogy. Lisa likes to cook. So, imagine you bake a pie. So, in order for that pie, for you to be successful selling that pie, you got to get lots of people to consume little bits of it. So, make sure you're in as many places as possible. Then, after about the first quarter to 6 months of doing that, of all that hard work, start looking at what is producing the most consumers of your pie and focus your attention on that, more of your attention and less on other ones. Alexa and Siri, while they may not be big right now, they're consumers. They're generating consumers of that pie. It may not be a lot, but once it's been done, you don't have to revisit it. So um, spend the energy now, and it'd be well worth it in the long run. Thanks, Favor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. That's so true. Classic. That's the I would say that's the gravy. I can say it like that. That's really where things start to change because that tastes better because you're able to do better. I love that. Lisa?
Yes, I was gonna say that. I know that Black Friday is this Friday. Cyber Monday is coming up. You might be looking at, like, my goodness, the end of the year is coming. You might not necessarily be satisfied with where you are with your business. Maybe you didn't hit the goals that you wanted to hit. I know because of what I was going through. I didn't, but boy, oh boy, have I caught up. And even though I've been really grinding these last 2 months, to a certain degree, I've been working smarter and not necessarily harder. I'm doing a lot less than I was doing before, but being very strategic about it. And I keep saying to Favor, I'm trying to hit, instead of two birds with one stone, I'm trying to hit 10 birds with one stone. And that is something that I'm very thankful that I've had Favor to bounce ideas off of. Or our chat is long, and he's always been gracious to help me, to extend a hand, and it goes beyond just me being in his SEO group. So let me just say that, because I think you dropped it here last night, that you have a new group starting. So I hope I don't know if you mentioned it at the top of the room, because I came in a little late. If you are not already signed up to be in that group, you definitely want to get in that group. um, you definitely want to be a part of the people that he's helping in 2025. So, again, if you haven't hit your goals, there's still something that you can do. You want to listen to his room that he gave last night, so that you can figure out, okay, what can I do? I haven't done anything, or I'm not where I want to be, but you can still make money. You can still develop a solid plan going into 2025. Because if you don't, you're going to be in the same spot that you're in right now. So, you know, definitely prepare for the beginning of the year now while it's November. Don't start thinking about it January 1st. And I yield my mic.
Thank you, Lisa. You're 100% right on that. You want to start now and build, especially last night, we were even crunching some numbers just to show you like the longevity on what you can do. Like, just think about if you post once a day for a whole year. I mean, not you doing it because you're like, I ain't got time for that, but someone doing that or doing it in a way that's automated, especially now with AI, but doing it very in a structured way, because there's structured data and there's unstructured data. I've talked about that too. So when you look at structured data, that's going to help you rank faster than unstructured data that you're just posting because you have content. So that difference now sets you apart because you have a faster, you have a, like, think about when you're playing a racing game and you have the boost. You know, if you keep having the boost, the boost, the boost, you keep boosting. Everybody else is on the same path, but you're boosting, and every time you're boosting, you're getting to the finish line faster. So that's how structured data feels when you have it on search engines, because you're giving search engines information that they can use to actually consider your content and index into their library. Because Google has about, it's definitely over about 200 million gigabytes worth of data. Like, if you can study that and check, like, it's huge. They have the largest data source file, if I can put it like that, because that gives you a lot of stretch. And not every website is updated, scanned through, indexed. Some pages change, some people switch domains, some people don't, renew domains. It's a whole thing. So just by looking at it, you just asking yourself, okay, where do you want to be? You change those things, like LinkedIn now. For example, LinkedIn, they're not doing LinkedIn audio anymore, but it's changing to now LinkedIn Live, where I'm sure there's going to be an audio, component, but I don't know how that's going to be because you're going to have to use StreamYard. So things are changing. So if you really look at the market and look at where you're connecting with people, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's here on Clubhouse, whether it's on Google, whether it's YouTube, even email, that connection is real because no one's going to just purchase or just sign up or do something because you said so. If it matters to them and if it makes sense to them, then they'll do something to solve that problem. If you have something wrong, you're going to fix the problem. If your tire's busted or if you have a flat tire, you're going to fix it because you know that the time you have to fix it will maybe save you, 5 days of not going out because you probably didn't do it. So there are things that you look at: what's the price and what's the cost. So those things that really, really matter to give you insight. I won't even ask you in the chat. Put in the chat, what is your biggest need, like marketing need right now? Because we're all in different marketing places and we have different businesses, but what is that one thing that you're looking for? Could you put it in the chat? Because I'd love to hear from you too. Some of us have been here for a while. And I would love to see, like, if anyone's available to write it in the chat, that would be good because I think it would be good to also see what marketing solution that you need. What are the questions that you have? Because there can be a lot of questions, but there's always one question that you want to solve, that can get you there. So, okay. It's quiet. Okay. No one has a question or they're typing. Because, I mean, if somebody has if you have a problem, I would want to solve a problem. But if no one's answering, then it's different. So let me see. Michelle has a question. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Biggest need just to do it. It feels like a whole other chore to create the graphics and do it. Okay. You're right. The doing part is so, that's like the biggest part, like hitting that publish, hitting that post. It's like the hitting that record. It's like the hardest thing to do, and every time it feels like it's like I'm not ready yet because it's like it keeps happening. I know how you feel, Michelle. I know how you feel. I know how you feel. I know how you feel because you have to think about your connections that you're making, like Austin's saying, start one to many, inbound marketing strategies, right? Like most creators, I just want to create. Right? You want to create, but you want to create with structure. That's why this SEO mastermind has changed everything, and it's also given me structure to help them, because I'm also, they're looking up to me and I'm looking up to God to help me help them. So it's like, okay, how can I do things differently than I did last year so that I can help more people at a wider capacity? Because my goal is to have a school, to have an institute. I'm already having classes online, I'm already having workshops, I'm having these things, but I have an actual school that people can come to, get scholarships, let them learn about arts, music, all the good stuff, and, educate them from a young age so that they can really build into those skills. Because the first 7 years of, a child's life is very important when it comes to that adaptive skill learning and language and all that good stuff. So, because me learning the drums at age 6, I can see that, looking back. So I'm able to see how can I turn that into content today that is actually profitable for business and also, socially acceptable, and also, engaging, because you can have content but it may not be engaging too. So it's like, how do you structure those things and what do you say? So Michelle, I'll definitely love to connect with you. Please click the link above, and we can get on a 20-minute call. We'll talk about it, and understand exactly what content you're creating. What do you need to talk about that needs the most attention? And then when we drive that attention, we can now change that and actually have branded content. Because when you have brand mentions and you have, like, Austin was talking about with inbound marketing strategies, that changes it, because those strategies that are inbound are very specific to your goal, to your targeting. Because if you have a brand and you're building your brand, right, your brand is a brand that's going to show up online. Because if someone's going to click your link on Google, before they click your link, they're going to read that title and they're going to look at your logo. Those are the two things that happen before they click. So before the click, what happens? When you think about a movie, what happened behind the scenes? Before this music was released, how many times was this done? Right? I think I got to hear recently that the engineer that did Billie Jean, he mixed and mastered that about 99 times before the final track came out. So it's like creating, recreating, redoing it, redoing it, redoing it. And it sounds like it's a broken record, but if you really know, okay, I want to target this audience, what we do is make sure we handle zip code marketing. If you want to handle this market, then this is where we want to go. Because if somebody needs a product and you're selling to them, or you want to offer them something and it's a solution they don't need, then it's not going to be profitable to you, and it's also not going to be essential to them. But if you now take that same product and put it in the same place but with a different audience, then when I say same place, I mean like platform. If it's Pinterest or TikTok or Instagram, and Michelle, please let me know which platform you're creating content on so I can also be more specific to help. You can use that platform to create more intentions online when you're engaging with people, because you're sending it back to your website essentially. So anything that you do on a shared platform, you're putting it back to your platform. So when you now take it back to your platform, someone can search for your brand, and then your brand becomes the brand that people search for eventually. So the more content you have on your brand, the more people can binge. If you have a favorite artist, you can listen to their songs, you can listen to their interviews, you can listen to their, podcasts and all those things. So it really creates those connections too. So I love that you guys have the ambition to do this, and doing it is one thing, but I think taking action and just having it done, when you have an accountability partner, that's the difference. That's the one thing that this SEO mastermind has also done: accountability. Because if Lisa wasn't asking me, if I wasn't asking Lisa or anyone else, what would that look like? Because that way people can really say, okay, what platforms do I need to buy? Do I need this? That research and time you're spending online, you can just ask a question and get a response, and that has saved you 3 hours of YouTube University search. It changes everything. So platforms: Substack, IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, in order of how much I do on each. Okay. Okay. So if I'm looking at the order, I would reverse it, because LinkedIn is where I would, have a lot of impact, and then use that for your website. Because if you're using IG and posting there, so, pieces from LinkedIn. And if I'm thinking LinkedIn, I'm also thinking it could be podcasts. I don't know whether the content is done in parts or they're done in full. But if they're done in full, then a podcast would be a great place to have them. Speaking of podcasts, let me just tell you this, John, and also everyone in the room listening, and also Lisa too, because your podcast is also about to start soon. I noticed something with this podcast clips. Okay, LinkedIn is not your target audience. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, you have a podcast about grief. Okay, okay. So this will help. I think this is a perfect timing I'm about to say this. With podcast, what I've just realized is that the new podcast clips that has shown up on Spotify, I tested it out, and what I'm doing now with the podcast is I'm having a new sequence, and the new sequence is going to be a roundtable interview or roundtable talk, and then it's also going to be an interview, and then it might be a solo in between. So it's going to have that sequence. And when I put a podcast clip, like this clips that we put on Instagram, I literally clipped about 30 seconds of because I had an interview with his name is John Patrick. He just released an album, and he's really doing well with it, and he just released it out. And on release, I now put the clip because he was doing like a release song, and he put it on his Instagram. So when we posted it, I now took the clip of that song that he was producing, and he was like talking about it and he was dancing to, and I put it into the podcast clip. I uploaded that clip, and now it shows you like a trajectory curve, like a forecasted dotted line, and shows you the potential maximum audience you can reach beyond just the linear scale graph. So I looked at that and it jumped up because the number of people that were listening were the same people, but just because of putting that podcast clip, it now boosted everything above the surface, and now more people are able to find the podcast, which now tells me, imagine repurposing content. Yeah, Michelle, repurposing content and pushing it back is not going to update the system. And if you have a website, that's even better for you because now you're actually getting 100% credit as opposed to 20% because you're only showing up on Instagram on one platform. So yeah, this SEO mastermind helped me unlock that for sure. Have you seen that, John, or any Lisa? What do you think?
I would love to jump in on this. So, um, when it comes to social media, the number one source of traffic for my website and podcast is Facebook, primarily the mobile Facebook app. Number two is LinkedIn. And my show, and I'll address it in a second. Then number three is a platform a lot of people I'm surprised about is Nextdoor. My show, about 80% of it is about trauma that people have gone through, how they had impacted their lives, what they did to build their lives afterwards. About 20% is about investigating crime. So the 600 and almost 700 episodes. It's a top 0.5% ranked show. It's a syndicated radio show that stemmed from Facebook. People that are on LinkedIn, they're not one dimensional. They consume content. And here's the thing a lot of people miss out on. If you're posting on LinkedIn, and I use the free platform on LinkedIn, I don't pay for it. When you get, I think, 150 subscribers or followers, connections, the word term they use, you're eligible for their free email newsletter and articles. They have such a high domain authority that will tremendously increase the amount of traffic that people search for you on Google and DuckDuckGo and all those other platforms. So if you delude yourself, and I'm not picking on anybody, if you delude yourself into thinking, oh, my target audience isn't on LinkedIn, good luck. My target audience is not on LinkedIn, but I'm going to keep on using it because it is so simple and it produces great results.
Yeah, I love that you said that, John, because I look at platforms not from who's consuming it, but from what the authority is. Like if you show up on the, Good Morning America news show, or, that's huge, right? Because you end up on a breakfast show, you end up on an interview, you end up somewhere. Yeah, it's great because you're getting that audience. So the same thing applies. Like, okay, I just want to make sure that I'm dominant here because if someone's going to hire me for a job role, if somebody's going to connect to me for business, if someone's going to check what I do, then they're going to use LinkedIn. And most times we don't really use our LinkedIn, it's just there. But if we now talk about topics that actually drive targets, like for you, Michelle, for example, I'm just thinking because of there was no one else that put in the chat, what their need is. I just want to be able to make sure we can just, put this together is if you're with your podcast, LinkedIn has the ability to connect your RSS feed into company profile. So most people miss out on that because when you have a LinkedIn RSS feed back into your podcast, which has your website on top, it's beautiful because you can talk about topics the same way you have an article on your website. You can have that on your LinkedIn. You may not use it for that purpose, but you may have it as a company profile. You may not say, okay, I'm not going to use it for my personal use, but I can use it for company use so that way, okay, I'm only there to have newsletters that a company digests or, how to relate with people. That way you can be able to build that. And then in turn, you're showing up online. Pinterest could be a great place for you too. It just depends on where you want to spend the, let me say it like this, the least amount of time when you think about a year, a 52-week calendar, but drives the most impact over time. And the platforms that I see that do this without a shadow of a doubt are four: Google, YouTube, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. And then to top it off, to put a bow on it, would be email. Because when you now have an email, your email is your domain. It's still on your website, it's still in your profile information, it's still there. So it's still a subset. So it's really huge. Austin says from the outside, it does look like Spotify is making huge moves to juice the algorithm and give you a new experience. I think so too. And I think it's great for monetization because, especially for me, who's a creator, like I make music, I create beats, I create jingles, and I'm thinking, okay, people are going to start needing to have authentic music because you can't just go and download a song and upload it with your song. You do CapCut and then you upload it. You're going to get dinged for that because you're monetizing. So if you are having original music, for me, every season I have new music. I create new sounds so that the music also adds color to the podcast. You don't really hear the music because I've mixed it, but it just is like a good music bed. It's like a nice bed. It's like a water bed, if you could put it like that, that you can enjoy the podcast, but you're still listening and you can drive, you can feel good, and it gives you a certain type of mood. So if you have that kind of mood, for example, and it's in your podcast and you're building that and that's getting into your Spotify audience, people start discovering and checking, oh, I didn't know that this person has an episode. Oh my goodness, this is a good episode. You have 15 seconds to tell them what happened in 15 minutes as an episode. They will go run in and listen to you because they never got to discover you. Now they are. Now they're paying attention. Now you're on smart speakers. Now you're on emails. Now you're building your list. And before you know it, you have a whole audience waiting for you. So it's really, really good. Yes, email list is amazing. Exactly. And it changes everything. Your issue with LinkedIn is tied to corporate job, not my grief work. Okay, I show up there when I talk about how to okay, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. I would say it this way: if I mean, I don't know the plan. That's why it's always good to get on a call to talk about these things because I'm able to know how to do it. Because yes, you may say this may be in the way, but if we want to reach those people in a way that can give you your time back, let's say in the next 5 years from now, and you spend the next 24 months just building your website, adding context. If you search on Google right now for what you do, what are the results that you see? If those results are 2 years old, 3 years old, imagine what you could be doing 3 years, 5 years from now if you do the same thing today. So it's just doing those things in a way that you're not just using LinkedIn to create content, but you're making sure that you have the total available market share available to your product. That's the goal, to increase brand awareness and to build relevance. Because the more you're able to be relevant to your consumer, the faster they can connect with you. And that's what you're looking for, results. And that's where all this comes to play as well. Lisa, John, would you like to add on to that? Any thoughts?
I was going to say, you said it all. You both said it all.
It makes total sense, and it helps too because we want to be where people reside, where they want to connect and where they want to build. And you know, I learned this earlier that the top three places that people listen to podcasts, and this makes sense because Alexa and Siri would definitely be part of this. The top three places people listen to podcasts are when they are getting ready, meaning that they're getting ready for work, they're getting ready for school, they're getting ready for, just to start their day. They're also listening to podcasts when they are driving, when they're on the road, when they're moving. So if you're listening to a podcast that's only on YouTube, it's going to be hard for someone to listen to you unless you're on YouTube Music. But that also limits you because you don't have access to other source files, where your RSS feed can be distributed to. So that's another one. And then the third one is when they're working out. So if somebody's working out, if somebody is doing something that's proactive, they could be in the park. They could be walking, they could be jogging, they could be meditating, they could be doing laundry, they could be doing something. So working out doesn't mean I'm at the gym. Working out means that there's a task that's being completed to accomplish a goal. So if that goal is being accomplished and you're supporting their goal with a podcast they're listening to from you, then that's a lot of where the engagement comes in, and that's where a lot of connections start to build. So it drives more attraction. You get to actually write to the right people. The keywords make sense because when they're typing, they're finding you as a search result, and that takes care of all the things that they need. So it definitely changes all that, in together too. So yeah, Alexa and Siri with your podcast episode or show is big. Do you think that, you know, podcasting, how am I going to ask this question? This is going to be a little different. Do you think podcasting is underrated? Let's go. Anyone can start.
I do not think it's underrated. I think putting out poor shows is overrated. If we look at just the last U.S. election and the power and the impact of podcasts, especially when it comes to, I just did an episode of my podcast about the death of investigative journalism on the legacy media with an investigative journalist. And one of the reasons he said is that because it's about money. Opinions and punditry cost nothing, and they're not worried about lawsuits, but investigative journalism is. So one of the frontiers is podcasting. Um, and it's an equal opportunity thing. So for literally, let's just say $200 a month, you can be as big as the biggest radio station in the United States, and have a platform where people can consume your content from anywhere, anytime they want. The big bugaboo is the amount of discoverability is so important. The amount of work you can put into promoting and marketing your content. That's where it comes in. Putting a great show is probably 10% of it. 90% of it's marketing it.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact. Yeah, it changed that, especially that with the elections. Think about it. There were two TV rounds of election that were done, right? You could say one of one, really. But the same one of one, if you scale it to the podcast, like you said, the audience, the people who are listening, the content, the marketing, it's different because it's more about like, okay, this is creative, but it's also engaging, because if something is not engaging, it's not going to be creative to the person that's receiving that information, because they also want to feel inspired by your creativity, so it changes everywhere as well. I heard somewhere that many Americans get their news from podcasts now. Yeah, I would not be surprised. Podcast is the new radio. I mean, it's iPod plus broadcast, from Steve Jobs, and it makes sense. It totally makes sense. I'm going online to look for this information about that. Somebody talked about it yesterday. It's like Clubhouse, but just in the world. So I would say Clubhouse is just like a podcast, but a podcast is like, based, it's open source. But if you're able to tailor your content to find into people's, field searches, it changes everything, because you start to think about incrementally increasing your content. The more episodes you have, the better it is. Looking at it now, 450 episodes feels like I'm not even started. I feel like, okay, I got to benchmark, hit that 500 before the end of the year, aim for 1,000, because now it's like, okay, well, how can we make this even more impactful? Because every time I'm seeing results, I'm like, okay, wow, it was 120 countries. This morning is 121 countries. So I'm just looking at the number. It's just going up slowly. It's like a little tree. It's just growing, and then it sprouts 5 years from now, and you're like, wow, these people are actually listening. You talk to somebody in Poland, talk to somebody in South Africa. Before you know it, you're in the Netherlands, you're back in Australia, you're in India, and then you're in a different state in the US. It's beautiful to see. And I think that's where really big connections come from. And that's where you can really, show up and show out for people. And if you do this as a guest or as a host, go on a podcast show. Go to a podcast show. I love the tree. Go on a podcast show. Because the lifespan, the half-life of a podcast is 24 hours. So if you want to turn that 24 hours to 24 months, then you turn that podcast episode into a blog article. That's the formula. Turn your podcast episode into a blog article. Now you may say, okay, yeah, that's easy. But now the strategy behind it is where the execution now comes in. Where's your SEO? How are you putting it out there? Where is it being received from? What are you doing to support that? And is your domain authority increasing over time? It's huge. And if you check your domain authority for your website, if you have one, just check your authority score. And I think that would be a good way for you to know, if you're growing, especially if you look at it from a quarter over quarter basis as opposed to just a monthly basis, because it can change over time. But if you look at a quarter over quarter and then look at a year over year, you will see that you're really growing if you add more content to your base. Because the more articles you produce, the more channels you connect with. And even for industries like Michelle with your industry too, I don't see a lot of topics that are put out on the internet. There are probably a few. So those markets are very wide, but they're also very niche. And because they're very niche, they can be very specific, and you could actually solve problems by answering questions that people are asking in real time, that Google is pulling documents from old resources because there's no new resources to identify or to, or to list. So those are like opportunities that could really impact your website long term and give you that positive value over time if you really think about the longevity. So that's where it comes into, Alexa, Siri, Cortana, that's a huge place to be. Even ChatGPT and Perplexity, how do you end up on those platforms? I was doing research and I got to know that ChatGPT and Perplexity, they have different responses, right? When it comes to search engines. So Perplexity, because it's Microsoft, you're getting Perplexity results with Bing. So if your website is not on Bing, you can't end up on Perplexity. That's like the 101. If you're on ChatGPT, if you want to be on ChatGPT, yeah, there's a little bit of Google there, but even if you're there, how are you basing on the AI overview? And if you're not ranking on Google, how is ChatGPT going to reference your content because you're thinking about the source? Now, if you're thinking about ChatGPT and looking at the business, the forecast, the market, the total available market, if you look at what the companies are actually doing, what they're actually doing, think about this. This is very key. If you notice that ChatGPT or OpenAI, let's not say ChatGPT because that's just one of many. OpenAI, right, is going in partnership with Apple. Apple has Siri. You see where I'm going with this? Apple has Siri, and with Siri, you're able to connect, and you're asking Siri questions that will lead you to Amazon, right? And on Amazon, you could be asking Alexa if you have one at home. So if you think about the cycle from ChatGPT to Amazon, back to your website, into Google, there's no way you can't be in that pathway. And most people aren't because they're not positioned with structured data to be in that alignment. And if you're not seen and if you're not being ranked there, it's different. You know, it makes a whole lot of sense. I just to give you an example of our mastermind, a great guy too as well. David, shout out to him too. If you type in on Google right now, pricing Airbnb photography, you don't know his business name, but you're going to see his website on AI overview. You're going to see his website on Google before Airbnb.com. That is dominance. And that's what happens in the SEO mastermind. That's dominance because your domain authority is so big that it goes above Airbnb.com. Like guys, just go on Google right now, go to your Safari, go to your browser, type in their pricing, Airbnb photography. Just type it out and see what you get there, and you'll see his result there, and you'll see David Pizzat there. Check the AI overview, you'll be able to see that. Just you'll see his name there. It's black. It's a black logo. You'll see it. because of SEO, because of search, because of timing. It took about 12 months to get there and to stay there. Now, when you get there, how do you stay there? That's another question. But you start staying there by applying those concepts early. And now with AI, it can instead of it being 12 months, it could be 12 weeks. It could even be 12 days. I've seen that happen too. So it's how you really structure and where you really structure your content that really gives you that, connection as well. Sadio, thank you so much. I appreciate you as well. Yeah, it's big. It's huge. Like, look at that difference and see where you align. Because if you're within these pipelines, there's no way you can thrive because people are searching online right now. And if they find your product and you talk about the products that they really love and you're the alternative, then they'll consider your alternative as an option because you have something to offer that can actually give them an experience. And people want an experience at the end of the day. They want something they can love, you can feel like this is worth my time and this is worth my value, so you look into those things too long term for yourself as well. Podcast episodes are really good for maximum engagement. Like, imagine having a website and you have a frequently asked questions episode about your product. Just think about that. You don't have to be on a phone call. If you have to be, that's good. You don't need to be, but when you do, those calls actually are, very good calls because those calls are actually giving you structure, right? And it's helping you know what is important, what's the goal, what's the strategy, and what do we need to fulfill here. Because when you have those episodes and people connect with you, then when they listen to those episodes, then they can learn. If it's a 5 minute episode answering questions, somebody will listen to those 5 minutes if they really care, if they really want to actually learn. If I send you a 5 minute voice note, that 5 minute voice message is going to be so dear to me because I want to hear what you're saying because you're expecting a response. So if you're giving people what they're asking for and they give it back to you, you help them. I ran a poll last 2 weeks to my email list in our community, and I asked, "Hey, how would you like to learn new information?" And I was really serious about it because I was like, I gave them four options. I said text, audio, video, or image, because I don't want to be spending time doing content that you guys don't even want. So majority of them said it was a huge tie. Not really a tie, but it was a landslide between one and the other, but it now became a tie between the other two. So people wanted to get more of text and video, but majority wanted to get audio. So I said, if you guys want to get audio, that means that's why this podcast, you guys are really listening. So I said, okay, you know what I'll do? I'll start having those solo episodes where I can discuss more. And I do them in between time because I wanted the podcast to focus on the people, the guests, the stars of the show. I just come in between with a little interlude here and there because we're going into an intermission right now, for the podcast. And by January, we're going into, season 10. So right now we're like, okay, how are we going to get to that point where we can actually connect with people and they say they want to listen to audio. And of course, no one wants to listen to a full hour audio. I also understand that they said audio, but they don't mean a full hour either. They want to listen to information in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Even, clients we've talked to as well, they said, "Hey, Favor, are you able to have like quick bits of information?" And I'm like, okay, I'm considering those things because that's the feedback I'm getting in my community. I can't just say, okay, I'll do that, and then I don't do that. It's not going to help them because they need that information. So if I'm giving you 2 minute episodes, 3 minute episodes, telling you how to do this for the week, and that's helping you, that's going to take you a step further in your business. And it helps. We started a podcast that was literally like 59 seconds, 30 seconds. That's how we started with another show. And it just started taking off like that. And people listen to those episodes, quick ones, quick episodes, because people want to listen to you, but they also want to like hear from you. Like, like you said, thank you, Zizi. Appreciate you. And Sadio says micro podcast. Yes, you know, you have to think about those little things. So if they say audio and I say, hey, we have an SEO mastermind And that's what I'm planning to do this week because I've sent out an email. And since I know what they want, I'm not going to be of disservice. I have to be of service and answer their questions. So they're asking, okay, we want to learn this thing through audio. So how do we learn this through audio? We're going to learn this through audio by getting to know about what the mastermind is about. So I said, okay, I'm going to run an audio, episode just specifically talking about the mastermind because it feels like instead of getting on a Zoom call with me, which you may not even have the time to do, right? You can listen to that episode when you have 5 minutes of a break before you go back to do what you're doing because you don't have to get on a call, click here, log in, wait for the waiting room to open up, turn your video on. It's like a process, but it's still possible. That's the fun part because we get to connect. That's exciting because we get to help each other and get to see the bigger reason why we're doing this, together. But I'm also looking at it from, okay, if you can answer this question and this question can be dissolved and resolved, then it now makes me feel like I can actually have better time processing what I'm doing because I've taken care of that one problem. I put out that fire, and now I'm off to the races too. So these are the things to think about, as a business long term. Just because when you have a show and that's a channel of connection, it changes everything. John, have you ever done like micro episodes? Did when you started, or have they
I,
always been?
I tried them, and to be honest with you, they didn't move the needle at all. So how I generate my revenue, number one is radio. And I use it as a tool to direct traffic to my website, social media, email newsletter, all that stuff, newsletter, news break, things that earn revenue. Um, Even the short clips did what it did is it created a little bit more branding. But when I looked at the insights, the previews were very short. There was majority, like 97% were previews, but they didn't drive anybody to listen to the full length episodes. For me, and I'm not saying this is a poo poo on anybody. For me, it would just create more work, and the response for it is just not worth the extra work, even if it's free. So, yeah, I've done some, and the short episodes that I've done, special episodes are short, 10 minutes or so. They've not outperformed. As a matter of fact, in many cases, they've done worse than the 40-minute episodes.
That's interesting. I love that because you're right. Because there are some episodes that, like, I've seen episodes on my show too that are 2 hours, and people listen to them. They're like, "Yeah, we want to listen to this right now. We want to really, really go into this because it feels sticky. Like if they're going on a 2 hour trip, they can literally binge it, and it makes sense because you want to build that stickiness. But I also feel too like when I'm thinking about sending that quick message, it also, I've seen that happen too and really work, whereby you're creating connections with people based on like quick episodes, like pretty much like bullet point episodes. I can call them bullet point episodes because you're just talking about things in quick mode, letting them learn about it, and then they go about their day. And I used to do that with music. I'll just do a review on a song or playlist early days, and I would, people would listen to it if I'm saying, okay, happy birthday or this or that, what are the lessons I've learned. People want to listen to those things because it feels like it's so personal. They want to get a little glimpse into your world before they get a glimpse into the people that you're connecting with. So you're right. It definitely varies between what people are actually coming for and what they actually want, because you don't want to give them something that they didn't ask for either.
Yeah, for me, it boils down to, and remember we talked about earlier, when you're first starting or you're relaunching your business, whatever it might be, put a lot of effort into it, do everything, be everywhere that you can for the first quarter, if not 6 months, and then start whittling down to what produces the most results and spend more time doing that and less time in the ones that don't produce results. And you can use a tool like Google Analytics to accomplish that and see what's directing traffic, sessions to your website, your podcast platform, or whatever it might be. So for me, the ultimate measure of everything has got to be the return on investment of time. And that includes paid advertising. If I'm spending 20 minutes just to create a video, for lack of better words. And that video produces 10 whole watches, and it doesn't increase in what generates revenue for me. I got to stop doing that. It may feel good to do that, but it's not producing return. However, if I'm spending, and I'm using a little more broader example, if I'm using Newsbreak and some of the written platforms and creating articles in support of episodes of my show, and that does generate response and it does increase revenue, I need to do more of that.
You're 100% right on that. Spot on. It changes everything about what you do, because the time you spend to edit, to change the caption, to fix a typo, it's a lot of work. It feels like this, I don't even want to do it anymore. But when you look at the automation piece and where it's going, and how you're building into that authority, building pillar pages, cluster pages, and building them together, you're pretty much building a house. Because I always say this, like when you're building on property, you're building for asset appreciation and value. So if you have a website that you're paying for within a hosting that has a domain, then your property needs to appreciate in value, because the value of your business has to increase year over year. Yes, it can increase year over year because you have revenue, because you have profit, because you have an increased average order value, you have an increased lifetime value. I'm also thinking about your email list, and also where you're sending your email list to, because you can have a great email list and you can be sending them to your Etsy store. You could be sending them to your Play Store. You could be sending them to your, other pages that you're featured on. You could send them to your website too. But if the structure on your website isn't in a structural format to receive signals that actually give you that authority, then you're missing out on so much. That's why I always say connect these codes, connect these codes, connect these codes, because these codes are going to help you track activity. You can track activity. It's so much happening, especially if you drive traffic. You want to be able to measure that traffic and know exactly what people are coming for. If people are jumping on your website because they love this or because they love that, then you're able to know, okay, this is what they actually want. That way, they are not just going there because they want to show up. They're going there because they actually know there's a need they need to actually fulfill. And that need they have to fulfill is by showing up on these platforms. So just by looking at where you are today, where you should be tomorrow, where you can be tomorrow, start a podcast or be a guest. That's why I said, the title says episodes or shows, because not everyone's going to be a host and not everyone's going to be a guest. Some people may not even want to do it at all. I have friends who don't even listen to podcasts. So it's a real thing, because I think, John, there's a time you said like there are more people that don't listen to podcasts than people who do listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I think the last study shows that in America, and it's different from country to country, but the big disparity is with people that listen to more than one episode a month of a show, of different shows, or more than one show per month. It's like 38% of Americans. So that means roughly 62% of the people you're pitching to will never consume your content. But that doesn't mean you can't create content that they won't consume and that they will consume and you can create revenue from. And eventually they can become a consumer. So you don't want to discard them. What's the old saying about throwing the baby out with the bathwater? So yeah, keep that in mind. And if you're not replacing the listeners you have, eventually people move on with life and they stop listening to your show, whether it be health reasons, life reasons, whatever it might be. If you're not replacing those with new listeners, you're going to die a slow, painful death.
Mm, we don't want that.
No, we do
We,
not
we
favor for sure.
we want to save the world, but it's one post at a time, one podcast at a time, one question at a time. You can't serve two masters. It's biblically proven. You can't. You have to really focus on one thing, and then that focus turns into something that you can focus on. You have to build it. One turns into two, two turns into four, four turns into 8 to 16 to 32, and you start building like that, because you're creating that compound interest. And that's where it starts to become really exciting to see. You answer questions, you go to Reddit, you see what people are asking, you answer that same question, you move on to the next question. But people, I think, find it hard to answer that question because they don't know if their answer is valid enough, or maybe if the person will even hear it in the first place to even start the conversation. So it's just hitting that record button and saying, let's go, let's do it. Let's talk about that. And then in the talking phase, you turn into that place where you can trust. It's all about that trust component. So if you can't see it from there, then there has to be something that has to, bridge you into that bracket. If somebody is looking for your business online, it helps. Like, let me ask you guys in the chat. We have about 11 minutes to go. If you have a business, if it's online, put online. If it's brick and mortar, put brick and mortar. If it's you can also put BM if you don't want to type the whole thing, or you can put none. I just want to see if it's brick and mortar, if it is online, or if it is both. Okay, we have 10 more minutes to go. So this is going to be perfect to talk about both. Okay, so we have both. We have online. Okay. We have both. Oh, this is good. Okay. Online. Okay. So is it a tie? We got online 3. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So it's a mixture of online and both. All right. So, and broadcast airwaves. Okay. Nice. Nice, nice. So when you look at these platforms, right? Online, brick and mortar, being on the airways, think about broadcast, because these are avenues that you can actually show up on. Because if you think about brick and mortar, it's a location, it's a position. If you look at online, it's a platform, it's a virtual address, right? It's somewhere that someone can visit. When they say visit our website, it's because you can click through to it, right? And then if it's an airwave, somebody can, listen to it, they can tune in, that would be the keyword. So because you're tuning into the frequency. So it takes action to tune into something because you want to react to something or respond to something. So if you have a business and you want to rank on Alexa and Siri with your podcast episodes or shows, what needs to be done is to have a standing website that it has structure, so that whenever you show up anywhere else, that structure goes back to your website. For every episode you publish, you're crediting back to your website, because sometimes you can be on somebody's show and they don't even know about SEO. That's why there's a room I did earlier today saying that college is the worst place to learn about SEO. That's something that someone from the SEO's world said. And I was like, come to think about it, it could be true. There's a possibility there, because you're learning from professors, you're learning from people who are training a module or having a syllabus, but Google changes their algorithm 8 times a day. So if you're in school for 4 years, think about the number of times that thing has changed between freshman and senior year. So when you look at the long-term effect of what you're doing now, you're saving so much time. Think about where you could be in a year from now just by applying applied SEO. Like Lisa, I remember when we started with SEO, it was like algebra, but now it's like butter, because you understand it and it's really, really like, a good space for you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Lisa, you there? Let us know when you're back, Lisa. But yeah, it definitely changes your whole scope. Okay, no problem. Yeah, it definitely changes your whole scope of where you see things, where you align, and what you're providing to online. Just think about where you could be in a year from now if you just paid attention to the science today. Questions people are asking today, it's good. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with university, but going to a class and even being a professor doesn't make you a practitioner. It's true. It's totally true. Like, most SEOs taught themselves. Most SEOs taught themselves, for sure. Like, you can say SEO if you've taught yourself SEO to the capacity where you actually see results in revenue and traffic and leads and conversions. You know something, because that's just the beginning of gaining more knowledge to that, and then you're able to grow. I remember learning a little bit of SEO, you know, in school, but I would say 98% was self-taught. 2% was probably just like going online, reading, listening. Even before YouTube became YouTube, I used to be, checking out on YouTube, back in the day. So looking at platforms like in its early phase, Clubhouse in its early phase, LinkedIn in its early phase, Pinterest in its early phase, these are platforms that have been here for a couple of decades now, either demi-decades or, full decades. So it depends on where you are and what you're doing, that gives you those results. So I think this is a really good time to, you know, let you know that if you want to do these things and you need more information about this, please do reach out to me. I will be happy to give you insight on this so that you can maximize your growth for SEO, for your business, for your website. And most people, they have their websites built, or somebody has their website built as well. John, we'd love to hear from you before you.
Yeah, before we close, I've got a 12 noon, and this is something you can probably do in the future. I got a 12 noon phone call with a company that is building my Wikipedia page. And the rough draft should be available today or tomorrow. And then by the end of the week, we'll have the final version. So that's another huge way. And for podcasters, there's a podcast called Call Her Daddy, Alice Cooper. She said the big turning point for her when she started to explode in growth was when she got the Wikipedia page. So if you do a quick Google search for American Podcast on Wikipedia, there's some heavy, heavy hitters on there. So I'm very excited about it, Favor, and I'm sure we can do a room about this in the future.
Oh yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah, I'm also, in talks with somebody on Wikipedia too. It's been happening for a year now, and it's like finally time to, digital billboards and Wikipedia is a move. I remember when we talked about that, and when I talked about Wikipedia in I think it was when August, September, around that time.
I think so. And you weren't you the one who quoted Alex Cooper about her? So we're talking about her selling her show to, I want to say Sirius or whatever. Weren't you the one who talked about her quote with Wikipedia?
Yes, yes, that's what gave her the edge. That's what gave her the edge. Because if you look at her website, it doesn't have a lot of SEO in there. But because she's on Wikipedia, which is one of the top most visited websites in the world, she literally leveraged her domain on that platform. And now because she has podcasts, she has supported material. It's one thing to just rank on Wikipedia and be there, but actually have content to support what you already have linking back to your website. So that's why it's not just, oh, Wikipedia, yay, you can have a page. There are millions of Wikipedia pages, but if your page is not powered or dynamically, changing how people actually connect with your brand, and it has a whole different thing. And I talked about it, and then she saw my story. She saw my story because I talked about Alex Cooper, and she saw my story on Instagram. I was like, yeah, we got it. It made sense. So yeah, it definitely is possible. You just have to think about, those avenues and what's really working, and be there as well. So yeah, we'll talk about these things, but it's what happens at the back end. Clubhouse is great for conversation and thought leadership, but it's really what goes on in the back. So John, thank you so much for bringing that back in. Yeah, we need to talk about Wikipedia more, and because people wonder, how do you get in, what do you do? There's a structure to it, there's a price for sure. You have to pay that price, but the investment is worth everything, because you can really think about, how it can actually change. Yes, when you think about Google Scholar, that's what you use for school, but you don't use Wikipedia, right? Because they tell you do not make any citations using Wikipedia. But when you think about the source files, SEO wise, that's where you want to be as a business, as a brand. Because if you have that, and then you have a YouTube channel, a LinkedIn account, you have your website, you have a news break, all those things are connecting to your Wikipedia. Just think about the amount of search. Like that's just what happened with Google and Reddit. Google partnered up with Reddit. They just skyrocketed half a billion traffic users just because of that one plug. So I'm just saying it, do the groundwork now. So when you do get to plug in, you're not plugging and playing around. You're plugging and playing actually the real thing, and it's actually helping your business long term. So that was a great, great add-on as well. And welcome, Soda. Thanks for being here today. Good morning. Great room, y'all. We've talked about this really, really well from 8:45. It's almost 10 o'clock Central. Anyone has any last questions? We got 2 minutes. Any questions for me, for us in the room, in the chat? Okay. So yeah, how to be listed on Wikipedia will definitely be, yeah, we should definitely do that holiday season. Yeah, okay. we'll make that happen. It's a beautiful thing to be on there. All right,
Why don't
John.
we do this? Why don't we join forces and do a podcast pros room about that tomorrow afternoon?
Ooh, let me see. Let me check right now. Tomorrow afternoon. That's around 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, I have an hour in
Awesome.
there.
And by the way, the reason I'm pushing this is the company I'm using. Their standard rate is $499 for the basic package. For the standard, right now they have a sale going on until this Friday of $299. So you can save yourself a couple $100, but there's definitely an investment of money and time because they really frown on you writing your own. If you can find someone else that does that, um, more power to you. You can probably get started.
You're so right on that. Sorry, I was getting a phone call. It's time to go. But yeah, it's definitely a place to be, and investment like if you think about investment in SEO, investment in Wikipedia, just think about it the long term you're getting back. It's like investing in an IUL or insurance. Like that, a decade from now, 2 decades from now, you're set. Think about search, think about online searchability like that. These are things that can definitely connect with you. So thank you so much for being here, for listening. I appreciate you, Lisa, John, Derek, Pete, Mark, Michelle, writers as well, writer girl, Karma, Sadio, Z, America Supermom, Austin, Soda, and Pesman. Appreciate you all for joining the room today, and we'll definitely be back again in the clubhouse streets. God bless you all. Take care, and I'll see you guys soon.